In the modern day, media and entertainment are more plentiful than ever before. We have sites like Twitter and YouTube to share our thoughts and have discussions, but more importantly, it allows for the sharing of more entertainment than in the past. Time and time again, we see these tiny indie games released, then go on to see a ton of popularity and success. Nowadays, it isn't just a fantasy to be a popular figure in the online space. But for some reason, it seems like almost every single person on the internet is actually the worst person to ever exist. Whether it's for committing an actual crime, or just generally being seen as cringy. If the creator of a piece of media does something controversial, that could push people away from wanting to engage with their work. But a decent amount of people can still separate the art itself from the negative actions of the artist. The same cannot be said about fandoms. If something ends up having a toxic fan base, it can actually stray a lot of people away from giving the original thing a chance. Even more so than a toxic creator. Whether it's a game, movie, TV show, or anime. This is the negative impact caused by a toxic fandom. Something every popular thing today seems to struggle with. So in this video, I'm gonna go through a lot of the aspects of fandoms. The good, the bad, and the questionable. But first things first, we have to identify the relationship between you and the fandom. So let's say you happen to like a specific piece of media. We'll use Undertale for example. You play the game and enjoy it, so much that you might even consider yourself a fan of it. And when you're a fan of something, you want to talk about it with other fans. And that's what forms a fandom. It's a community where you can share art, express opinions, and ship characters. Yeah, a lot of fandoms like to imagine two characters being in a relationship, even when they may not have had any sort of romantic interactions in the whole game, movie, etc. Some even take this a step further and start shipping actual living people. And that's not the only bad thing a toxic fandom can do. Some people just care way too much about the things they like to watch. Something I've noticed is that some fans treat criticism of a piece of media like a personal attack, which doesn't make any real sense, especially when the most vocal critics of something tend to be the people who care about a series the most. Obviously, not everyone in a fandom does that, but the toxic minority is often also the loudest. And this toxic side of a fanbase is what people usually point towards when discussing a bad fandom. The worst thing a community usually does is make low quality animations of characters in quirky scenarios, where they'll then be recorded and put in a cringe compilation, where all of the very serious Reddit users and Discord admins can make fun of the little children. But if you're gonna be associated with toxic people, why be a part of the fandom in the first place? Well, to answer that, we have to put So now that I've made the boundary lines, it's time to look at the positive aspect of being in a fandom. With the rise of the internet, the way we consume media has changed drastically from the way things were in the past. Imagine what a SpongeBob fan looks like. Do you think of a 7-year-old watching TV before school starts? A millennial that's grown up with the series? Maybe a teenager that used to watch it, but now only sometimes references it in conversations. The truth is that you can't really point towards a specific demographic. SpongeBob is one of the most popular shows of all time, and its demographic is pretty much everyone. But if I told you to think of what a League of Legends or Genshin Impact fan looks like, you immediately build a caricature of an obese, no-life who probably needs to go outside. Does this mean that everyone who plays Genshin looks like they belong in an episode of My 600-Pound Life? No. This perception is mainly caused by memes, but it's still pretty safe to at least assume that there's a good overlap between people who like anime and people who like Genshin Impact. Nowadays we have more popular pieces of entertainment than ever before, which also means it's less common to see something that literally everyone's into. And on one hand, it can sometimes be hard to find someone who likes the same TV show, YouTuber, band, or game as you. But on the other hand, it gives you a lot more to talk about when you eventually do meet someone who's also into what you like. At its core, a fandom is just that, but on a larger scale. While I don't think any fandoms are as big as SpongeBob's total viewer base, there's a stronger connection to be had there. At its best, a fandom can be supportive and share a mutual enjoyment of something, and ideally they'll keep it to themselves and not try to spread it like a disease, which is probably one of the main things that cause other people to not give it a try. But the best of fandoms can actually go one step further. In late May 2022, the Team Fortress 2 community started a movement where as many TF2 fans as possible, big or small, would come together to get the attention of Valve, in hopes that they'll do something about the rampant issues involving bots. And by the end of things, they ended up getting an official response from Valve. And since then, the game's been getting updates a lot more frequently, and a lot of exploits have been patched. So I'm sure there are people hearing this and thinking,
man, this is stupid. Can I go harass people now?
And if you're one of those people, I think you might enjoy our next category. When there's a group of people going after a piece of media or a fandom, you get what's called a hate-dom. Fundamentally, it's actually incredibly similar to a fandom, but instead of connecting over liking something, you instead connect over hating something. And while a fandom is usually connected over social media like Discord or Amino, there doesn't even need to be an official group for a hate-dom to exist. All you need is a group of people that adamantly hate a piece of art, or hate the people that like that piece of art. Hate-doms are often even more toxic than the fandoms they're hating on. For example, over a year ago, I made a video talking about Gacha Life. And while I was just reviewing the game itself, it almost seemed like everyone who watched the video was up and ready to harass literally every Gacha Life user in the comments. It doesn't help that I also made the mistake of leaving the name of someone in the video uncensored, which caused a group of about 25 to 50 people to go out and harass the individual in question. All of this just for using a particular piece of software and being in my video. Thankfully, I was able to reach out to him and everything was forgiven, but it's absolutely crazy to see how far these people would go just to harass random kids online. Now, I absolutely don't like Gacha Life, Gacha Club, or its community, but there's a really obvious line between disliking something and disliking a person. And if harassment is ever even considered, you've already gone too far. Another case of this is what happened during the whole Jelly Bean debacle. A ton of people made videos on this YouTube Shorts creator and TikToker Jelly Bean, and it turns out that they're cringe. Oh no. Of course, there was some valid criticism to be had, like Jelly Bean's audience spamming comments site-wide, thanks YouTube. While they tried to stop people from doing this, releasing several community posts, the truth of the matter is that those fans didn't really care. This in turn led to many YouTubers hopping on the bandwagon, and this led to Jelly Bean getting a lot of harassment, ultimately resulting in doxing. But here's the thing with all the harassment. Having hundreds of commentary YouTubers constantly talking about you, while it has its downsides, ultimately gave Jelly Bean even more relevance than before, albeit with a mostly negative viewpoint. But other people saw that happening, and purposely used that same thing to grow a following of their own. I'm of course talking about Meowba, a similar creator who garnered a good amount of success just by, pissing people off. This all goes to show that some people can utilize toxicity to their advantage, although I will say, growing with a positive fanbase is most definitely better in the long run. But what happens when you leave the fandom to their own devices? Well, at that point, you're just stuck with... As I mentioned before, the fandom isn't just some of its parts. It's a community of people with differing opinions. So when both the regular and toxic parts of the community have to coexist, there's only a matter of time until people speak up about it. Friday Night Funkin' is an extremely popular rhythm game created in 2020 for a game jam. The first build of the game was completed in 2 days, but over time it gradually turned into the game we know today. Of course, with help from the community making mods. Modding helped turn Friday Night Funkin' into the behemoth it is today. Modders were able to add new characters, new songs, new weeks, and even new engines so that the notes feel more responsive to press. And because the game's open source, literally anyone can make a mod, even with no pre-established experience. Although you'd probably need some for it to be good. This is an interesting case where the fanbase around a game not only makes the game more popular, but also ends up overshadowing the original game. FNF modders were able to become pretty big YouTubers themselves, and this led to communities forming within this already existing community. Some similar things have happened before with Undertale, Roblox, and even Minecraft, where people who create content out of those games get mutual audiences with the creators of the games themselves. But an unfortunate side effect of this is that when the games lose popularity, so do the creators who play those games. So back to the FNF community. With so many new modders and content creators, it's only a matter of time until one of them does something bad. And while I'm not gonna name any super serious examples here, there have been a number of controversies surrounding different mods, leading to them being removed from Game Banana, the primary source for downloading mods. I hope you guys enjoyed this little delve into fandoms. Yeah, goodbye.